Today, every day, small cap investors visit Agoracom knowing this is the day to discover the world's next great company, to have their dreams come true. That's why I take to the open road, to find them, to tell their stories, to engage them, to bring them to life, because they want to connect with you from your office, your phone, your home, anywhere. Agoracom, find your dream.
Welcome to Beyond the Press Release, a production of Agoracom, in which we take the time to sit down with small cap executives about recent important news. With us today, I'm happy to have back Ryan Brown. He's CEO at NORTHBUD Farms. The company trades on the CSE under the stock symbol NBUT, NBUD. Now, for those of you new to the story, and it's got to be a lot of you, because NORTHBUD listed pretty late in the year, and then might have got caught in that downdraft in the marijuana space. But nonetheless, you're going to want to watch and listen to Ryan because he's a seasoned executive, a pro who's had a track record of success. NORTHBUD acquired a late-stage ACMPR applicant. That's Grow Pros from Tetra Biopharma. A lot of you know that from Agoracom, TBP on the venture. That application is currently in the confirmation readiness stage. And in fact, NORTHBUD amended that license application to add 500,000 square feet of outdoor cultivation area. And that's the press release that we're talking about today. What are they going to use that space for? The facility is going to focus on GMP, that's higher production grade, farmer grade, cultivation, and food grade extracted inputs, which is timely because we know that Canadian regulatory door for CIP, that's cannabinoid infused products, is opening in 2019. We've already seen in Colorado, Washington, Nevada, California, that sector has become the highest margin segment of the entire industry. And the company, NORTHBUD, is going to focus on being a raw input producer instead of an end product producer. Here to talk about this, Ryan. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, George.
Hey, and Happy New Year to you and the team over at NORTHBUD, and looking forward to 2019.
Yeah, same here, you and your team as well.
So let's go into this. You've got a couple of things going on here. You've got the indoor facility, you've got the outdoor facility. Let's talk about the indoor first. How's that construction timeline looking like?
It's going, it's just right on schedule, actually. The construction crew that we're using has been very diligent, although we have had some adverse weather conditions. They've plowed right through. Facilities up, it's all sealed in. The interior construction started actually today, and we're still on timeline to be completed sometime around the end of Q1 2019, and that'll be for a 25,000 square foot indoor facility that will also house all of the infrastructure, trimming, drying, cloning rooms for our outdoor production as well, that we're hoping to bring online likely in early 2020, or the planting season for 2020.
Now, confirmation of readiness stage. I want to make sure I get it. You don't have the full approval yet. What does it mean to be at the confirmation of readiness stage?
It just means that the application's progressed to more or less the final stage of the process. We have to finish building out the facility. Once built, we submit our evidence package to Health Canada, and then we, hopefully receive our cultivation license relatively quickly after that. But we're really focused on taking a more methodical approach to this. I'm not going to rush into anything. We'll want the facility to be 100% operational before submitting any documentation to Health Canada, so that when we are issued the license, we can really hit the ground running.
But basically, as long as you finish the construction the way you had planned for, it shouldn't be a problem getting final approval.
Yeah, based on what we've seen up to date in the industry, that tends to be the trajectory for these companies that are at the same stage as we are. But we have also noticed a bit of a gap with a lot of companies that receive a cultivation license and aren't able to actually start producing for 3, 4, 5, sometimes 6 months after, often because the package submitted to Health Canada may have showed an operational readiness, but from a corporate perspective, they were not actually ready to start operating. And so we want to make sure that we avoid that and that we're 100% ready to hit the ground when we receive the license from Health Canada.
And that's more than just lip service. That means something coming from you and your team, because this is not your first rodeo. This is your first kick at the can. Use whatever sayings you want. You guys have got great experience, so your level of confidence is pretty high that you won't have any issues meeting the requirements.
No, we're quite confident in our ability to hit the ground running. I think one of the benefits for a company like us coming into the licensing process at the stage that we are, we have access to genetics that are already existing in the gray market or in the home grow market that we're able to repatriate into our facility. So a lot of the things that some of the more premium cultivators have done, seed germinating, pheno-selecting, genetic selecting, we've actually already started that with a lot of the partners that we're going to be working with that are going to basically sell us or license us their genetics post licensing approval. So that'll help us become more operational ready so that we can really hit the ground running and not have to spend call it post licensing time dialing in these genetics and really giving ourselves the best chance to be successful right off the bat.
Well, naturally, doing things concurrently and parallel, is optimal. So I'm glad to hear that. Let's talk about the press release that you put out just for Christmas. And we didn't do this interview because you put that out on December 20th. There really wasn't much point talking on the 21st, or that everyone was in Christmas mode. You've announced an amendment to add 500,000 square feet. That's outdoor cultivation space. Tell us about the rationale for that.
We started seriously considering it probably about 6 months ago. While we were excavating for our indoor facility, we identified that we had very, very fertile soil that, surprise to us, had never been used for any agricultural production other than hay going back almost 100 years. The farmer that we purchased the land from, the land had been in his family for almost 100 years and was able to give us sort of the lineage on that. And so when Health Canada amended the cultivation regulations to allow outdoor production, we obviously took a very serious look at it. And after getting confirmation on the security requirements, speaking with some of the local cultivators in our area, finding out what strains had worked for them, what type of techniques, strategies they were using, because we're obviously not in the most ideal outdoor climate, but one that's still conducive to give us a good 4 to 5, even 5.5 month outdoor cultivation cycle, which when we sat down and looked at the numbers, obviously outdoor production, significantly lower cost than indoor or even greenhouse production. And with the ultimate goal of producing food grade inputs, we thought that this was a more or less a no-brainer for us. We've started the process of having our land approved for organic production. Soil samples been taken, sent to labs, et cetera. So we've got some time to really build out our infrastructure, make sure that we're able to do this in the most efficient and productive way possible, and possibly implement full organic production, which would be our goal. But obviously, we still need to go through a few steps in order to obtain those certifications. But that was more or less the thought process behind it. When we sit down and look at the numbers, cost per gram, yield per square foot, et cetera, nothing really touches outdoor production. Not something that you can just throw a bunch of seeds in the ground and hope and pray. There's a very methodical approach, but given the timelines that we're working on, we believe that we'll be ready for the 2020 planting season to produce high quality, high yielding organic outdoor crop that will be used as an organic food input for either our edible products or other potential edible partners in the space.
And to be clear, we've said a few times on this call, but want to make sure we pound this point home. You're not a grower and a cutter. You're not looking to grow and cut and just sell flower per gram, and you're getting into the infused products, really specialty, this large scale GMP manufacturing. Let's talk about the infused products market in 2019. When the regulations will start allowing for infused foods, and how big is this market going to be both in 2019 and beyond?
The expectation is that this will be online or the industry will be ready by October 2019. As to market size, I think we've seen in other legal jurisdictions, particularly in the US, that the edibles market does take up a large percentage of that market. I think what's going to be interesting now that Health Canada has released the regulations around dosing sizes, packaging, etc. You're starting to see a whole infrastructure, a whole industry infrastructure being built, where there's a multitude of small to mid-sized companies that are focusing on establishing either for edibles or for beverages the infrastructure required to infuse, to manufacture. So we see this supply chain being created and want to slot ourselves into that supply chain as an ingredient supplier to that supply chain, for whether it's existing consumer packaged goods companies that are entering the space, whether it's existing cannabis companies that are trying to diversify into creating lines of food and beverages. We believe that we'll have an ingredient for them that will be vital to their manufacturing process, and we believe that that'll be a very high margin segment of the market for us to focus on. And so we're really excited about what we see, and the players that we're seeing entering the space, and the infrastructure, more importantly, that we're seeing being built to provide all the services required for the consumer packaged goods industry.
And you're already working with, I'm going to read here, you're currently working with multiple food, beverage, and science companies to provide state standardized cannabinoid-infused raw inputs for large-scale GMP manufacturing. So how are those conversations looking right now? Are they very tertiary, just intro, or are you starting to do deeper dives with a lot of these potential customers?
On the science front, we released a while ago that we've done a licensing deal with a company in the U.S. made by Science that has an encapsulation technology and a variety of other food and beverage infusion technologies. They were actually recently acquired by Acreage Holdings, which is one of the largest multi-state operators in the U.S. So we're really excited about that relationship moving forward, allowing us to cater our cultivation to the infused ingredient that we will be focusing on. So whether that's for a powdered ingredient for a cookie, whether that's a liquefied emulsified extract for a beverage, we're really able to lean on some significant scientific know-how down in the States to allow us to execute on that. From the consumer packaged goods and the food and beverage segment, I'd say we're still in mid-level discussions. Obviously, there was a lot of companies that expressed interest in entering to that space. Kind of as the regulations become clearer, the landscape becomes a little bit more, a little bit more transparent. Some of these companies are actually opting out or are looking at implementing their own infrastructure. So as their business models develop, we're able to get a better feel for how our resources and our infrastructure will work with their infrastructure moving forward, hoping to start finalizing some of these agreements over the next quarter to half of a year, as everyone kind of gears up or prepares themselves to go online in the fall.
And because this is so much of this is based on science, value add, you don't have much fear commoditization of the space. In fact, margins, I touched on it earlier, but what do margins look like for this space as opposed to the just grow and cut and sell as much cannabis as you can per gram?
But typically the margins are significantly higher in the infused product segment. I think for us, where we see a value is being able to take, for example, say 1 kilo of dried cannabis and break that down into 10 milligram doses. When you run it through when you run the numbers, you're able to take something with a value of say $3,000 and sometimes turn it into 2 or 3 times more revenue for that same cost. So for the cost for us, whether we take it and grow it and sell it as a dried flower product, or we take it and turn it into an ingredient and sell it as an ingredient, our costs don't really change a whole lot, but the margin's significantly higher. And we believe the overall demand as well, will be significantly higher, focusing on the consumer packaged goods segment as opposed to necessarily just the dried flower segment.
Okay, so from the company point of view, kind of summarize, construction should be wrapped up, indoor construction should be wrapped up with a smaller facility by end of Q1. Looks like you've applied for the 500,000 square feet, and by October or so, the whole cannabis infused products market should start coming online. You're talking to potential customers. You've got some great science behind you. So we're going to have a lot to look forward to as far as the company goes in 2019. Let's touch quickly, if you don't mind, because you do have great experience in space. You're a pioneer in it. How would you explain, I want to talk about the market in general and whether that puts fear into people. How do you explain the recent market activity in the cannabis market? Because after October 17th, things just seem like they're falling apart, especially for rookie investors who might get really worried about these kind of things. How do you size all the activity up?
I think we've moved on to the industry's moved on to the show me phase, where talking about it, coming up with, I mean, you know, we've all seen the press releases, we've all seen the claims being made by a lot of companies, and now everyone's going to have to prove it. So one of the reasons why NORTHBUD has stayed relatively small, while we've stayed focused on a few key segments of the market, gives us a greater chance of being successful in the execution phase, which is where we're heading to now. Nobody really knew exactly what the market demand was going to be. Nobody knew what the logistics and infrastructure issues were going to be. Obviously, we're seeing that now where, for example, I live in Quebec, and of the 8 stores that exist in the province, most of them have no product. Similar problems in Ontario. Honestly, it really looks like Alberta was the only one that really was able to implement a functional process, and even they had to stop issuing retail licenses until the supply caught up. So this was something that didn't catch us off guard. We kind of knew that this learning curve was going to transpire and exist. You've seen it in almost every U.S. jurisdiction as they've transitioned from medical to recreational or added new product segments. And we actually believe you're going to see something very similar happen around the legalization of edibles.
And I was going to ask you that. I was going to say, devil's advocate, is the same thing going to happen to edibles? Because demand there is going to be massive, right? And you guys aren't going to be able to keep up with supply.
Well, and I think one of the big curveballs that was thrown to everybody is the not being able to manufacture cannabis infused food in a existing food facility. I would say 80% of the companies we spoke to had kind of earmarked square footage in their existing food manufacturing facilities that they were going to apply for a processing license and commence edibles manufacturing, where all of a sudden now they're going to have to set up an entirely new infrastructure, which requires them to bring on more staff, which kind of requires them to, diversify a little bit from their existing core business. And every step away from these companies' core business, it increases the risk, it increases their fear of detracting their resources away from their existing profitable businesses. And I think this is going to provide a huge opportunity for companies that are focusing on being the infrastructure, being the white label manufacturer, focusing on food grade cannabinoid inputs. And so we're more than happy to be participating on the ingredient end of that space, but really allowing all of these kinks to be worked out before having to worry about getting a finished product to market. I think that smaller companies that are getting caught up in this learning curve right now, it can be extremely detrimental to them. And so for us, we're more than happy to focus on what we know we're good at. Keep an eye on where the market is developing and continue to build those relationships as we see opportunities where we can add value.
It almost sounds as if you don't have much of the risk, but have the potential of so much of the upside. So that's a great risk reward scenario for you and your shareholders to be in as far as the company operations go.
And you've seen it right now in the dried flower market. I mean, there's licensed producers right now that are willing to buy product at a loss to fulfill product SKUs that they're not able to fulfill in-house. So whether that is a company that's agreed to supply a higher price point product to one of the provincial regulators, only to find out that the market demand in that price point for the product that they're creating in their 250 or 300,000 square foot greenhouse just isn't up to the standards of the consuming public, which ultimately are going to be the ones that are going to dictate who the winners and losers are going to be. And so we see that as a potential value add as well, where you can be a small to mid-sized company focusing on these gaps in the market and create a really, really successful, profitable business without having to overextend yourself in the way a lot of these companies have, where I don't think they even know what their core value is anymore, and their unique value propositions kind of gone out the window because they're just scrambling to be involved in everything, not knowing what segment of the market is going to hit and make them successful, which for a company our size would be highly problematic to take that approach.
Yeah. Well, last word to you. We both discussed, and I gave kind of a summary of the hard events that look like going to be taking place throughout the year. But talk to me about. Let's end it off with this. Talk about what you see for the company in 2019. And 20, if you want to look that far forward. What gets you excited? Why you think you have, based on your experience, you're not just some dreamers in the space and hoping to hit a bullseye on a target. You've actually been very successful already. What really excites you about NORTHBUD's business side of things over the next 12, 18 months?
I think getting our, I like to call it our campus, getting our campus online for us is the number one priority. I think that once we can make that claim to have this operational production space online, whether it's investors, whether it's potential partners, sit down and look at the amount of money we've spent for the potential yield in not just in grams, but also from a revenue perspective, it's going to make us a very attractive partner for a lot of companies, as well as hopefully an attractive investment vehicle for investors that are looking to hedge some bets on some of the smaller companies that potentially have significant upside. So for us, we're just excited to be able to realize all of the plans that were made in 2018, and 2019 is really an operational year for us, and we're excited to get everything online and start operating.
Ryan, thanks so much for joining us today. Great way to start off the new year. It's effectively the first full week of everybody coming back to work, and you coming on today to give everyone a great summary answer these questions, even some of my tough ones, is really appreciated. Looking forward to having you back on as you hit some great milestones in 2019. But thanks for being here today.
Thanks a lot for having me, George. Look forward to the next one.
You've been watching Ryan Brown. He's CEO at NORTHBUD Farms. The company trades on the CSE under the stock symbol NBUD, NORTHBUD, NBUD, NBUD. For more information about the company, you can always Google them, NORTHBUD Farms, or get to Agoracom, punch in their name and stock symbol. Take a look at their profile information, a previous interview we've already done with Ryan, and all sorts of other great information you need about the company. Then take advantage of the CEO Modern discussion forum. Post any questions you may have. Ryan and his team will answer them because they're open and accessible, because they're confident about where their company is going to be in the future. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a fantastic day. Remember, do your due diligence on NORTHBUD Farms. Have a great day.